Hi all, Dwayne Theobald here, coordinator of the University Writing Center at the University of West Georgia. What I'm going to be doing through this video presentation today is walking you through some information that I hope will be helpful to you as you contend with and navigate APA style. APA style is one of the three major styles that are really utilized here at UWG. And one of the things that I am a firm believer in is when it comes to citation styles, yes, they can be challenging. Yes, they can be they can require a good bit of things from you. But one of the things that I'm a firm believer in is that you never have to memorize how to do anything with a style. I like to say that up front because I don't ever want any student or any writer thinking they have to memorize, how to cite something in a certain style or where what the title page should look like just off the top of their head. What I'm going to do today is, of course, talk through different parts of the style, but also provide you with examples and, more than anything, resources that you can utilize as you move forward, both the classes you're in currently, but classes you will also take in the future. So let's get started. So one of the things that I like to start off with anytime I talk about citation style, or really writing in general, is that all of us come to writing with various things that we struggle with. Again, for the purposes of the presentation today, it could be APA style. For some people, it's argumentation. Some people, it's grammar. For some people, it's paragraph development and utilizing your resources and your the research and things that you find in a critical way. All of us have at least one thing we struggle with. I'm convinced of that. And some people have more than one. But I am a firm believer in, whatever it is that you struggle with when it comes to writing, don't let it consume you. Don't let it be the end all be all. Know that there are things you can do to improve on those certain things. And if you happen to be listening to this and APA is one of those things that you struggle with, my goal today is to give you some things to think about that will make this a little bit easier, will make it a little less tense, and a little less frustrating for you as you move forward in classes you're in now, and of course classes you'll take in the future. So as I talk through APA, what I want to do is I want to kind of break it down into 4 different sections. The first one, I do want to talk about and show you some information that deals with the overall formatting of an APA document, what an APA document will look like, because it does look distinctly different from other styles that you might utilize. I do want to talk, of course, about in-text citations and give you a couple of key things to keep in mind as you move forward. I do want to talk about a reference page, what a reference page looks like, and of course give you some examples of some of the main sources that you might utilize moving forward. And then, of course, as I promised, I will provide you with some resources that I hope will help you as you continue to use APA. So, overall document format and appearance. One of the very nerdy things about doing the kind of work that I do is that I have gotten really good, and my consultants in the center have gotten really good at being able to look at certain papers and know right off just looking at it, what kind of style it's in. MLA has a distinct look versus APA versus Chicago versus some of the other smaller citation styles that are utilized. So when you're thinking about an APA paper, there are several things you want to keep in mind in terms of how it will actually look. The first one being, you want to make sure that your paper in APA includes 1-inch margins on all sides of the paper. Now, Microsoft Word, for the most part, 1-inch margins all around that should be the default. At least it is for a lot of writers that I work with. If it is not, I would encourage you to either change it or just make the adjustments as you need to for your paper when you write an APA. Also, make sure you use a font that's going to be easy to read. It's going to be easy on the eyes. It's going to be clear. Times New Roman 12 point is one that I highly recommend. That is a standard for MLA, another major citation style that is used. But Times New Roman just looks easy on the eyes. The key is when you choose a font type and size, you want to make sure that you choose something that a reader is going to be able to look at easily on the page and be able to decipher and read through what you've written. You don't want them having to look at the font and guess at what some of the words are because of the way the font looks. I know that might sound a little silly to say, but there are times when all of us that work in the Writing Center have seen papers that the font choice has been really interesting and it makes it harder to read the paper. So keep in mind you want to have something that's easy on the eyes. You want to make sure to double space out the entire document. That is standard for APA. You also want to make sure to include a page header with page numbers. Now, one of the things that I am going to talk about here in a bit is that APA, particularly the APA 7th edition, which is what I'm going to be covering in this video. There are two different ways to approach a paper for APA 7. There is the student paper and then there is the professional paper. The student paper has you simply putting in within the page header the page numbers, the continuous page numbers, so 1, 2, 3 throughout the entirety of your document. It doesn't require the running head to be there. Unless, of course, you're asked to include, to have your paper be written in the professional sense. And again, I'll show you the distinction between that here in just a bit. And of course, it does include, APA papers include typically 4 major sections: the title page, the abstract, the main body, and of course the references that you would have. So just keep that in mind. That's pretty standard, although also recognize too that there are some professors that may tell you, I don't want an abstract, or I don't want this, I don't want that. Everything I'm going to talk about in this video details APA as it is. But of course, if a professor tells you to deviate from it slightly, of course, do as the professor tells you to do, because they are the one that is assessing your work and giving you credit for the work that you're doing. And of course, I do want to show you an example of an APA paper. So one of the things that I think is great about resources when it comes to citation styles and writing in general is OWL at Purdue. OWL at Purdue is really, really helpful. I'll make mention of this again in just a little bit, but I, of course, recommend that you utilize their website. If you don't, here's the web address. It's owl.purdue.edu. Really easy to find. You can Google OWL like the bird at Purdue, and you'll be able to find this link easily. On their homepage, if you scroll down to the middle, this middle column here is most popular resources. If you click on the APA formatting and style guide, all the information that is on this page and within OWL at Purdue does deal with APA 7. Now, if you happen to be using an older edition, maybe you're in a program that you started with 6th, so you're allowed to continue with 6th. All you have to do is go to this particular link and click this link here that can be found here, and that will take you to the resources for the older 6th edition. But for our purposes today, or at least at this point, if you're looking over at the APA style introduction page, over here there's an APA formatting and style guide link. It gives you a drop down, and then there's a sample paper. And I like the sample paper because the sample paper does provide you with what a paper would look like. So I mentioned there's an APA student paper and APA professional paper. They do look a little different, so it's important just to keep in mind what they look like and what they include. You will note that an APA student paper, of course, here's everything that you need for the title page. And what I like about OWL at Purdue is that it gives you everything, gives you within the example everything you would need to serve as an example, and also comments to kind of let you know what should be done there and why. You'll notice with the student paper, this particular one, there's not an abstract. You just start with the paper itself. But if we toggle back to the professional paper, let's look at this one a little more closely. For this one, you do still, of course, have the page numbers, but you also have the running head, the shorter title of the paper itself. You have, of course, the same information you would need for the you have information you would need for the title page, and of course here you would have an abstract, and then of course going into the body of your paper, so on and so forth. So again, just to make note that there is a subtle difference between the two, and again, there's examples on OWL at Purdue that can help with that as well. Okay, another thing to keep in mind with overall format and appearance for APA 7 is headings. Headings are really, really nice because they help you group your ideas together and think about organization. It helps guide your reader throughout your document. They can know what you're addressing within your paper and how you're breaking it down and when they're getting to a new topic or a new subtopic, depending on the complexity and length of your paper or assignment. It is organized by levels of subordination, and I have this quote here from OWL at Purdue, and I want to make mention of it before I take us back to OWL at Purdue and show you what these headings look like. Regardless of the number of levels, you always use the headings in order, and you always start with level 1. It's very important to keep that in mind because there are times, especially here in the Writing Center, we've seen students bring in papers that, again, most of the formatting with APA is correct, but with their headings, they don't start with level 1, and you have to start with level 1 to keep it in order. And of course, OUTLOOK Purdue does have information about headings. Again, it's really, really easy. Like with most things with style, I just recommend going to OUTLOOK Purdue, or again, you can utilize the APA manual if you like to see exactly what the headings look like. You'll notice here the most distinct difference, or the one that's the most distinct, is of course the level 1. It is centered, boldface, and title case heading. And then 2 and 3 look pretty similar to one another. Of course, one being italicized, the other not. And 4 and 5 are really similar. The only difference being 5 is italicized with the information, with this information from 4 just italicized. So keep in mind what this information, what the headings look like, and of course know that if you go to OUTLOOK Purdue, there are different examples here, just so you can visually see for yourself what you should be doing. And of course, keep in mind the different levels correspond to ways in which you're going to be structuring your paper, structuring your assignment. Level 2 could be a point, 3 could be a subpoint, 4 could be a point of the subpoint, and so on and so forth. One of the things that I really do recommend, and I recommend it for headings, but I also recommend it for just thinking about the overall formatting and appearance of your paper in APA. Utilize sample papers, utilize samples like what I've shown you here from OUTLOOK Purdue, because ultimately, one of the best ways to know if you're doing what you're supposed to is to visually pull up your paper in one window, pull up an example in another, and just visually be able to compare what you have versus what a reputable source like OUTLOOK Purdue has to offer and has to serve as an example. Okay, so that wraps up everything with overall format and appearance. Now I want to talk a little bit about in-text citations. In-text citations are really important because as a reader, you're reading throughout a paper, you read material that again is not original to the author of the paper, whether it's directly quoted or paraphrased. It's good for you to be able to see when that's done, and you can see when that's done because you'll see that in-text parenthetical citation. For all citations except for those that are following with block quotations, the reference is going to be placed immediately before the final punctuation mark of the sentence that refers to that source. So what I mean by this, let's say you start out your sentence with an introductory phrase, you transition into a direct quote with the quotation marks around it to distinguish it's a direct quote, and then you get to the very end of the quote. You would, naturally we would think at the end of a sentence we would put a period. Well, you finish out that quote, put the in-text citation, what goes in the parentheses, then put the period, then put that final punctuation mark. It seems a little odd to do that because grammatically it would seem as though we would put it at the end of the sentence or end of the quote. But the best way I can think to explain it is the information that is within that parenthetical is grammatically as important to that sentence as everything that's come before it. So that's why you do lead-in phrase, quote, in-text citation, period. And of course, for a block quote, you would just put the period exactly where you think it would be at the end of the quote, and then put the parenthetical. Just a slight little difference. In all the citations, elements such as author, publication year, page number, those are all going to be separated by commas. And it's really important to keep in mind that it's commas because punctuation is one of those tricky things with style. Some styles do require there to be commas between elements and a parenthetical, some don't. So it's important to keep in mind that commas are what's used here for APA. And of course, if you are using the new APA manual, the 7th edition, you'll see here on the screen, that is the page range where you can find information on in-text citations. If you are in a program where you use APA a lot, I recommend purchasing the manual. You can get a paperback, you can get a spiral bound. I actually like the 7th edition. I think it's much more streamlined. I think some things are a lot easier to do on the writing end from the 6th. So I do recommend getting your hands on the manual. It's not terribly expensive. There are other citation styles that are more expensive. And again, if you're going to be writing in the style a lot and you're early on in your program, it might not be bad to go ahead and just have a copy of it. So for in-text citations, you do want to recognize that there's a difference between a direct quote and paraphrase material. They do look different. A direct quote is, of course, you're pulling something word for word from a text that you want to use as it is written. And of course, keeping in mind you have the quotation marks on the front end and the back end. But paraphrasing is done a lot, especially in education fields, in education writing. You know, what paraphrasing is let's say you've read something, you really like what it says, but you don't necessarily like how it's said. That is very common. I have read articles in my own work where I'm like, I love the ideas here. I don't like the way it's written. How can I put this into Dwayne speak and then articulate it into, articulate it out into my paper? That can be done, but of course you want to make sure to cite. So for in-text citations, direct quotations, you would approach it from two angles, and I've already discussed this. Your direct quote, less than 40 words, you're going to have the sentence as it's written with the direct quote, then the parenthetical, and then the period. So in this case, the parenthetical includes the last name of the author, comma, year, comma, and then the page number, which is distinguished by P dot. But for a direct quotation is more than 40 words, meaning more than 40 words constitutes a block quote. You do the entire quote, period, then put the parenthetical. There's a subtle difference. And then for paraphrasing, again, you're writing something in your own words, but you're, of course, wanting to attribute the ideas and the information you have found. Of course, you do your parenthetical. You would put the last name of the author, and then you would put the year. For one author, for two authors, you'd put the first named author for the article, for the book, and then put the second one, comma, year. And then for multiple authors, for the first and subsequent citation, you can put you can put the authors et al., the first author et al., and then followed by a comma, and then the year. So in this case, Bowen et al. Basically, at 2009. Basically, what et al. Does is it saves you from having to put Bowen, Simpson, and Stewart, Bowen, Simpson, and Stewart, Bowen, Simpson, and Stewart every single time you put in an in-text citation. That would become really labor intensive, and you would, honestly, at a certain point when you're writing, you get to a point where you're like, anything I can do to save time. Well, this will actually save you time, and this is actually something that is different for the 7th edition of APA versus the 6th. The 6th would have you write out all the authors' names in the parenthetical the first time, and then the subsequent ones you wouldn't have to. This one, you just get to do it the one way, and that's where you do the first named author et al. And then the year. Talk a little bit more about paraphrasing. Again, a paraphrasing occurs when you've read something you like, but you want to restate it in your own words. What's great about paraphrasing, it allows you to summarize and synthesize the information, which is really good, because the best way for you to be able to know your content and articulate it is to be able to, of course, summarize what you're planning to use and how you're using it, but also make that work really well. Make your ideas and what you're presenting mesh well with the research and the sources that you have found to factor in. Again, they can be cited in a couple different ways. The first example, the Black et al. 2018, looked really similar to the one I just showed you. There are some instances, though, where paraphrasing, you might want to include the page numbers of where that information can be found, even though it's not directly quoted. So it can be done like the second example here. Webster Stratton 2016 described, you provide the paraphrase material, and then you would do an in-text citation at the end with the page numbers. And if there's more than one, you do pp, lowercase pp dot, and then continue from there. And of course, for longer paraphrases, you could always start out with, as example gives here, Velez et al. Parentheses 2018 found that, and then kind of go from there. And of course, the APA style website does have more information on paraphrasing. The link is here. Again, ultimately, some disciplines are going to want you to paraphrase more. Some might want you to use direct quotations more. Some might not care. They just want you to utilize research critically. Ultimately, just make sure that whatever you do and whatever is required of you or recommended of you for your discipline, do it correctly, and make sure that you're as consistent as you can possibly be. Okay, let's talk a little bit about references. Your reference page is really important, because it and the in-text citations speak to one another. Because essentially, if you have an in-text citation for something in your paper or in your document, you need to have that entry, that reference entry in full on the reference page. Both need to be present. Your reference page is going to let your reader know what you used in your paper, where it came from, because in your entry on the reference page, you're going to provide a lot of information for that source. And it's ultimately going to, in many cases, the information you provide is going to speak to the credibility of the research and the sources you found, what they're saying, and kind of what their overall scope is. Of course, I'm sure you all are aware, but you don't want to just use any information you find on your topic, or you don't necessarily want to find the first thing you find on your topic. You may want to do a little bit more vetting to get the information that you need, or the best information that you need to help you produce the most successful paper or assignment you can. And of course, do note that different sources do require different things of you in order to be accurate and complete. One of the things I often talk to writers about is that it's kind of interesting, as media has evolved and as texts have evolved, so too must the citation styles. I tell writers all the time, Twitter didn't always exist. But now that it does, and it could potentially be used in a paper, depending on the context, you need to know how to cite a tweet. You also need to know how to cite a YouTube video, and YouTube hasn't always been around. So it's interesting to note that if there is a source out there, if there's some kind of text that exists, there is going to be some way, shape, or form to go about citing it appropriately. And of course, in the APA manual, there are pages that refer to references. The first one is the reference list. There's the page range in the 7th edition, and the references examples are in the page range here, 313 to 352. You'll notice that is a good chunk of pages because, again, there's a lot of different kind of media that you have to digest and that you might want to use, and because of that, the folks that put together everything for APA have to make sure to have a way for you to go about citing it and giving credit to that source. So what I'm going to do now is kind of walk you through some examples of common entries. And I do want to emphasize common. I'm not giving you an extensive list because this video would be way longer than I intend for it to be, and you would eventually tune out. So what I'm going to do is give you some of the basic ways to cite certain sources. The first one being a book. So with a book, and I will note, all the information I'm going to give you in these examples, this one and the ones to follow, are correct, but do keep in mind, because it is APA, you do double space in the entries. Doing that in PowerPoint's a bit of a pain. So for a book, you start with the author's last name, comma, first initial. If the middle initial is available, do provide it. Then you put in the parentheses, the year that the text came out, period, the title of the book itself. It's going to be in italics. You will note, though, our tendency when we write the title of a book is to capitalize the first letter of each word. In APA, you do not do so. The way that it works is you actually capitalize the first letter in the first word, anything after a colon, the first letter of the word after a colon, and then any kind of proper noun. The example I give here is Americans. Of course, you want to capitalize that because you're distinguishing a certain kind of people. Or another way to think about the capitalization within a book or within a text in APA, such as the title of a book, title of an article, is to think of it like a sentence case. That's another good way to think about it. So you provide, of course, the title of the book with appropriate capitalization in italics, period, and then you put the publisher, and that's it. Now, again, this is a good bit of information to have to think about when you're doing your reference example. That's why I mentioned at the very beginning, you don't have to memorize how to do this. Finding a good example and having it in one window and having what you have tried to put together or are trying to put together in another, and utilizing a good example like this as a template to help you put together yours, that can be really helpful, and it can oftentimes be less stressful for you. A journal. Of course, journals contain some, at least it starts the same, but it does get a little bit different as we move on. So you'll include the last name of the first author, if there is more than one, then the first initial, and then you would do the next one, last name, comma, first, middle initial. The year, of course, in parentheses, and here's where it gets a little different. You then provide the title of the journal, the title of the article in the journal. You'll note here, of course, you keep in mind the same capitalization. You do not put the title of the article in quotation marks. That is something that styles like MLA do, but you don't do that in APA. The title of the journal is going to be in italics, followed by a comma. Then you have the volume and issue number formatted as such. The volume will still be in italics. The issue will be inside a parentheses with the number, comma, the page range for the article itself in the journal. And then, of course, you have the DOI, Digital Object Identifier, where this could be found. So, of course, I just showed you an internet. So an internet journal looked really similar to the one I just showed you. Again, same information, author's information, year, title of the article, the journal it's in. I do want to point out in this particular example, there's only the volume provided. Sometimes for some journals, you might not have an issue, depending on the journal itself. It's rare, but it does happen. So again, include the information you can. Again, following the format, have your page numbers, and then of course have your DOI. But if you happen to find an internet journal where the DOI is not available, you stick to the format. The only difference is you then include the hyperlink where it can be found. So the rest of the information stays exactly the same. And again, I don't know if this would be useful for any of you, but film is my area, so I often include an example. If you ever need to cite a film itself, you would do the director's last name, comma, first initial. Director would be put in parentheses with a period. Then in another set of parentheses would be the year that it came out, period. The title of the film, in this case, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Of course, observing the punctuation rules, or the capitalization rules, excuse me. In brackets, you put film, period, and then the distributor, or the studio that produced the film. So those are some ones that might occur. The book and the journal ones, of course, being the most common. Again, if you happen to look at a government website, there is a way to cite sources through government agencies. There is a way to cite law in APA. Again, all of that information is going to be available to you through OWL at Purdue, which brings me to where do you go when you need to find information on these styles? Again, you don't have to memorize this. I say here you can't memorize. I should have just corrected this to say you shouldn't memorize. The APA manual is a good point of reference. The new edition is easier to navigate. I like it because you have the lovely colors of the different sections and you have tabs that associate with that. It makes it really easy. Or the pagination is at least color-coded if you're looking at a paperback. It makes it a lot easier for you to navigate, especially once you've started using it some. And the ISBN here is on the screen so that if you need to purchase it, you can. OWL at Purdue, again, I've already showed you a good bit of information on their website. We go back to the main page for APA 7th edition. So if you click on their formatting and style guide, you'll notice that there are a number of links that talk about in-text citations, a bunch that talk about reference lists, how to cite different things, books, of course, other print resources, electronic sources, audio-visual media, other non-print sources, legal references. Again, all of this is here to help you. So I recommend, again, looking at an example on here or looking at an example in the APA manual and then putting it alongside what you might have or what you're trying to put together. And then, of course, the Writing Center's website. We have a lot of information on our website that will help you with APA. Of course, we do have information still up here for the 6th because we know some cohorts started with this style and are still finishing out with it. So if you keep scrolling on this particular page, you'll find about midway down, there's the starting information for the 7th edition. So we have different PDF links, links that will take you to pages with examples. And of course, there are resources here that can help you as well. So essentially, if you're working in APA and you have a question about something, there are resources available to you. These are 3 that I highly recommend. There also is an APA blog, APA style blog. It is run through APA proper, so if you do take a look at something there, I would say you can trust that it's reputable because it is policed and monitored and maintained by the APA folks. And then to wrap up, I do want to make a quick plug for the Writing Center. We are here to help you with anything you're working on in any of your classes. We are physically located in TLC 1201. The picture here on the screen is of our front door. You can, of course, see us for anything, any writing assignment at any stage in your writing process. Some people think we are only here to help you if you are finished with an assignment. We can, but also know that we can help you as you're drafting. And honestly, if you would like to meet with someone before you have even started, just to brainstorm and talk through your ideas, those are some of the most enjoyable sessions. Those are some of the ones that I enjoy the most, and I know my other consultants do as well. Let us know what you need help with. We want to make sure that we address the concerns that are bothering you the most, and the easiest way to do that is if we know for a fact what's troubling you, if it's your argumentation, if it's APA style, if it's a grammar issue, if it's a structure issue. We will help with any of those things. We just like for you to kind of give us a sense of what you need help with the most, and we can focus on that. We do ask that you come and utilize our services before it's urgent. Try not to come and see us if you come to see us face-to-face or in a video session right before the assignments due. We'll give you feedback. We'll always help you, but our big thing is that we would like for you to come in, utilize our services, and get help, and then have time to leave our office and take that advice and utilize it and tweak with your assignment and make some edits, make some changes so that you can keep in mind what we've suggested and turn in, hopefully, a much better version of your assignment, the version that will get you the best grade and the most complimentary feedback from your professor. We do a lot of things in our office to help you. The only thing we do not do is we do not edit papers. We're not going to copy, edit, and make corrections for you. But if you know, let's say you struggle with run-on sentences and you struggle with comma splices, we can, in a session or through submitting it through our course demo location, which I'll talk more about in a second, we can focus on that and give you feedback on that. All we ask is that you give us a heads up, and we can spend time helping you with those issues and show you how to correct them and show you how to identify them, and in many cases give you resources that will help you as you move along. Because COVID has made everything a lot more complicated, but it's also one of the beautiful things that I've told people is that it's allowed our center to serve every student, or to potentially serve every student. We are providing our services in 3 different modes, and we will continue doing so through at least the next academic year, probably even further than that. We do offer face-to-face services. Right now it is socially distanced in our center. Three consultations going on at a time, more than socially distanced. Everyone's masked. We have plexiglass on the tables, and the center is cleaned thoroughly every day. So if you do want to make a face-to-face session, you can stop by, call, or email. We'll get you set up. If you want to utilize our course demo location, every student on campus is enrolled in our course demo location. It is University Writing Center Consultations Spring 2021. All you have to do is go to your CourseDen homepage. You'll notice our course. It should be on your home screen. If it's not, you may have to go and pin it. You can go into the course, submit an assignment through the Dropbox, no more than 7 pages, and we will get it back to you with feedback in 48 hours or less. Right now, we're tending to hit toward the 48-hour mark because we're getting closer to the end of the semester, and all of you have things due between now and the end of the semester. So we are busier than we might be at the beginning. And of course, if you want to make a video, make an appointment for a video session, just send us an email. We will get you set up. And all the hours and availability for all 3 of these modes is on the homepage of our website. Our web address is westga.edu/writing. And on the homepage, this gray box is all of our modes and all the days and times that we're available. I do want to make note, if you do want video sessions, we are available to you every day but Saturday. We actually do have Sunday hours 12 to 5 where you can meet with someone and get assistance on that assignment. These hours are becoming quite popular because, again, it's an ideal day. It's during the weekend and you may not have work or you may not have other obligations going on. And to wrap up, here's all of our contact information. Again, our location, phone number, email. There's our website address. Our graphic over here to the right. We are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I encourage you to follow us so you can kind of keep up with what we're offering. We're always going to remind you to come and see us. We're going to mention other things that are happening on campus. And also, when we do host online workshops, we do make it a point to plug those on our social platforms. And also, here at the bottom left-hand corner is my contact information. That is my office number and that is my email address. If you ever have questions about our services, and it could be anything, anything about our services, anything I've talked about APA today, anything about writing in general, I am always willing and happy to answer student questions. And I give you both my phone number and my email because if you would like to call me, you absolutely can. If you email me, even if I'm not in the office, I can, of course, answer emails. I do that regularly. Ultimately, I want to make sure that all of you get exactly what you need from our center so that you can be successful on that assignment, but also as you move forward. I hope this information on APA has been useful to you, and of course, getting a brief glimpse at what our center can help you with. If you have any questions about anything, of course, reach out to us. We're always available. Have a great rest of your semester. I hope to see many of you in our office in the near future. And again, take care of yourself and each other. Thanks.